Shamano, Bunjanaivatma Kritam Vipakam, Hitvakvapu Bividam Namaste, Jivita Yo Mukti Padesa Dayabak. Anya Blasta Sunyam Gyan Kamadyanavritam, Anukelenya Krishnanu Shilanam Bhakti Uttama, Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadata Shivasadi, Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Welcome, God sisters and God brothers, fathers, mothers, aunties, uncles, cousins, daughters, sons, no grandsons, no granddaughters. I'm not old enough yet. It's so nice to see you. It's beautiful. This whole screen of devotee magic is so gorgeous. Every beautiful flower on this screen is just mesmerizing. Thank you so much for coming to Mercy, Grace, Lila, our adventure in developing greed for Bhakti in the lead up to Kartik 2021 Gurudev Centennial Kartik. We're trying to beg for the mercy of our acharyas by worshipping them and begging for their grace and mercy every week as we honor their disappearance days and their appearance days. And then also every week absorbing ourselves in Navadvip Lila, followed by Kartik Lila once the Navadvip Parakram is completed. And we are now, it's February the 1st, we're now only just over a week away from the appearance day of Srila Gurudev, his 100th appearance day. I can feel like it feels quite volcanic, I have to say. So much activity, so much beautiful grace, so much Hladini Shakti coming from Srila Gurudev on this such an auspicious time on this planet. So today I'm going to hand over to our beloved Syamarani Didi, Srimati Syamarani Didi, in just one moment, who's so kindly agreed to share her Harikatha, give us her Harikatha from Florida. She'll be speaking on this week of the appearance day of Srila Gopal Bhatta Gosvāmī, the disappearance day of Sri Rāmacandra Kavirāja, the disappearance day of Sri Narahari Sevāvigraha, the appearance day of Sri Bhakti Vaibhava Purī Gosvāmī Mahārāja, the disappearance day of Sri Jayadeva Gosvāmī, and the disappearance day of Sri Locana Ṭhākura. So she will be speaking on one or more of these great acharyas, but she will be certainly honoring all of them. And I will leave it to her who she's gonna focus upon. Syamarani, once again, thank you so much. I know you're very, very busy, and I appreciate you coming to speak to us. Welcome, and Hare Krishna. Dandavat pranams.
I appreciate you engaging the unengageable. Agyanam timirandasya Jnananjana salakaya Chaksurunmilitam yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah. Gurave Gaurachandraya. Can you hear me well?
Yes, very well.
Okay. Radhikaya Tudalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadabhaktaya Namo Namah. Yang Pravarjantu Manupetam Apetu Kretyam Dvaipayano Virahaka Taruva Juhava Putreti Tanmayataya Taruvo Banedos Tang Sarva Bhuta Hridayam Munimanatosmi Bhaktya Vahina Aparada Lakshay Shaptasya Kamadi Tarangamadi Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapadyam Vrinde Namaste Charanarvindam Tavoivasmi Najivami Tambina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tam Nayamam Charanam. First, I offer my unlimited obeisances in the dust to the lotus feet of my most worshipful Diksha Gurudev, Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad, Asto to the Sat Shri Srimad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada, and the same unlimited obeisances in the dust of the lotus feet of my most worshipful Shiksha Gurudev, Nitya-lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad, Asto to the Sat Shri Srimad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Gosvāmī Mahārāja, Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Gosvāmī Mahārāja, Srila Bhakti Vallabh Tirtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja, Srila Bhakti Doit Madhav Gosvāmī Mahārāja, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Gosvāmī Mahārāja, Srila Bhakti Pramod Purī Gosvāmī, Srila Bhakti Vaibhava Gosvāmī Mahārāja, Srila Gaur Govinda Gosvāmī Mahārāja, to Srila Bhakti Doit Madhav Gosvāmī Mahārāja, to our Param Gurudev, Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshava Gosvāmī Mahārāja, and Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Ṭhākura Prabhupada, to all of his divine associates, and to all the beautiful assembled devotees. Lots of great souls today will be talked about, and I pray, that's why we uttered the auspicious invocation previous to the class, because we're invoking the presence of our Guru Parampara and all of our gods and goddesses to bless this meeting, that it will be successful despite myself. We're going to be talking about the great personalities in sort of chronological order, who came yesterday and who will be coming tomorrow. So first, we will discuss Rāmacandra Kavirāja. He was given the name Kavirāja by Srila Jiva Goswami himself. He's the disciple of Sri Srinivasacharya. Excuse me 1 second, I have to put on the heater. Srinivasacharya, and he's the grand disciple of Srila Gopala Bhatta Goswami. So Srinivasacharya is the direct disciple of Srila Gopala Bhatta Goswami, whose appearance day was also yesterday. And Sri Rāmacandra Kavirāja, Srila Bhakti Vallabh Tirtha Goswami explained to be non-different from Srila Narottam Das Ṭhākura. That really says a lot. And the best friend of Sri Narottam Das Ṭhākura. As you know from Srila Narottam Das Ṭhākura's bhajan that we sing during our kirtans, Rāmacandra Sangha Mange Narottama Das. Narottam Das is always praying for the association of Sri Rāmacandra Kavirāja. Narottam Das Ṭhākura himself is so incredible. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left in the Padmavati river all of his prem, all of Nityananda Prabhu's prem, even before his birth, calling out, "O Narottam, O Narottam." And then when Narottam Das took bath so many years later, he wasn't even born then, took bath in the river so many years later, the Padmavati river gave him all that prem. And then he left his body bathing in the river, and his body turned to milk. So we can't imagine the glory of Rāmacandra Kavirāja, who's non-different from Narottam Das Ṭhākura. Once, his Gurudev, Srinivasacharya, lost consciousness and became like a stiff board. And everyone was so worried. Did he die? Is he alive? And no real signs of life, but no signs of having left his body either. And this went on for many, many hours till the next day. They were very worried, so they called for Rāmacandra Kavirāja, who examined him and said, "Oh, he'll be back to consciousness very soon. Don't worry about him." So then he himself went into trance and he meditated on the pastime of Radha and Krishna that was taking place just then. And acting as a Raganuga Acharya, you know, they always, Raganuga Bhakta, they sometimes follow the Goswāmīs. They follow the Goswāmīs in their sadhak forms, and they follow the associates of Krishna and the Goswāmīs in their siddha forms as well. So in his siddha form, Srila Rāmacandra Kavirāja is Karuna Manjari, and Srinivas is Mani Manjari. And so he went, in his own trance, he went into the same pastime that Srinivasacharya was absorbed in. And what happened was, Radha and Krishna were bathing in the Jamuna, and not bathing only, but having sportive pastimes in the water with their sakis. And Radharani lost her nose ring, and Guna Manjari, that is Gopala Bhatta Gosvāmī, in his sadhak form, requested Mani Manjari to find it. She couldn't find it. That's why Srinivasacharya could not come out of his internal absorption. And so Karuna Manjari went into the water and found the nose ring, presented it to his guru. Of course, there's no guru there in the Goloka Vrindavan. There's only Saki. No Diksha Guru, Shiksha Guru. Lalita is the Shiksha Guru, Vishaka is the Shiksha Guru. As it is here, it is there. So Mani Manjari gave the nose ring to Guna Manjari, who gave it to Rupa Manjari, who gave it to Srimati Radhika. And then Rāmacandra Kavirāja came out of his trance, and then Srinivasacharya came out of his trance. And so that shows another glory of Rāmacandra Kavirāja. A glory of him in his sadhak form is that his younger brother, Govindadas would later on become Govindadas Kavirāja, who wrote such beautiful bhajans as Bhajahure Mana Srinandanandana Abhaya Charanara Vindare. So before he became Kavirāja, before he was a Vaishnava, he was a Shakta, or a devotee of Durga Devi. And he worshipped Durga Devi, but once he got very, almost dead, critically ill, and all of his worship of Durga Devi did no good. So his brother, Rāmacandra Kavirāja, said, why don't you worship Krishna? Do Krishna bhajan, because you see, it's so obvious that your Durga Ista Devi is not helping you. So in order to convince him to do Krishna bhajan, to become a Vaishnava, he requested Narottam Das Ṭhākura to recite the Srimad Bhagavatam, and he felt himself incapable. So he wrote a handwritten letter to Srinivasacharya to come and recite the Bhagavatam. And by that, Govinda Das became a pure Vaishnava, and later on became Govinda Das Kavirāja. Rāmacandra Kavirāja took part in the amazing, larger than ever before or after, Sankirtan festival at Khetri, where Janavi Devi, the consort of Lord Nityananda, was presiding over many, many, many thousands of Vaishnavas. And it was originally impelled by Srila Narottam Das Ṭhākura, and who had discovered 6 deities. And he asked Janavi what to do, Janavi Iswari, what to do. And she said, well, they're already self-manifested deities, so no need for an installation, just do an abhishek. You can invite Srinivasacharya to do the abhishek, and you and Rāmacandra and Shyamananda Prabhu lead in the kirtans. And during the kirtan, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all of his associates, the Panchatattva members, all appeared there so that everyone could see them. And they were dancing and singing along with the kirtaniyas. And when the kirtan was finished, they stopped. So we'll find the samadhi in Vrindavan, the samadhi of Rāmacandra Kavirāja, right next to the samadhi of his Gurudev, Srinivasacharya, in Vrindavan. They're always together. How did he meet Srinivasacharya anyway in the first place? So before he met, he was celebrating actually his marriage ceremony. And he was riding on a beautiful palanquin, beautifully decorated palanquin, carried by palanquin carriers. And his beautiful new bride was in the palanquin with him. And all of a sudden, he heard Srinivasacharya, like at a rest stop, he was saying, this person who's getting married now, he doesn't realize how foolish he is, that he's putting a serpent of death around his neck. So Rāmacandra got off the chariot and went to his Srinivasacharya and said, what did you say? So he repeated it, and then it immediately struck his heart. And he said, oh, Gurudev, I'm here, I've come to you. And then he instructed the palanquin drivers to take his new bride home. He completely cut off all of his connections. And she was weeping, but they took her home. And his guru, Srinivasacharya, is also so great. He's the one who wrote the Sad Gosvāmī Astakam, as you probably all sang yesterday on the appearance day of Srila Gopala Bhatta Gosvāmī. And he's one of our original Gaudiya book distributors. So we in Srila Gurudev's line are all wanting to be book distributors in the line of Srinivas, Narottam, and Shyamananda Prabhu, who are ordered by Jiva Goswami to take the one and only copies, because in those days there was no printing press. Everything was written by hand in the Sanskrit or Bengali language. And they were entrusted with a truckload, a bullock cart load that is, with a trunk of all the Goswami's literatures. But as you must have heard on many occasions, the books were stolen in the middle of the night by the king. Srinivasacharya, in his search for the books, making a long story short, went to the palace of the king when somebody was giving a class in the assembly of the king on 10th canto, either Brahma Gita or Gopi Gita. And they weren't doing such a good job. So Srinivas asked if he could say something. The king said yes. And he spoke so beautifully, being a maidservant of Srimati Radhika, it's inevitable that he would speak so beautifully. And he wept, all the council wept, and the king wept. And the king begged him that he could become his disciple and with all of his associates. And so Srinivas accepted him. Then he said, so what dakshin can I give you? Because there's always a dakshin at the time of initiation that completes the initiation ceremony. So we said, maybe you could help me find those books where myself and my associates, Narottam and Shyamananda Prabhu, are totally distraught, suicidal, that these books are gone. So the king said, oh, that was me. I heard from my astrologer that you were carrying a great treasure, but then after it was stolen, I saw the treasure, it was just books. But now I see that those books are a treasure. Excuse me. Can you get that home? Yes. So all of his associates, everyone in relation to him is so glorious, and he's glorious. Otherwise, why would somebody so great as Srila Narottam Das Ṭhākura prayed for his Sangha? Rāmacandra Sangha Mange Narottam Das. Another thing is that when Rāmacandra Kavirāja left the vision of the world, Narottam Das Ṭhākura was so much feeling separation, so much weeping, that from his lotus mouth issued two great books, which is Prem Bhakti Chandrika and Prarthana. One of the prayers in there, which is Agyana Timirandasya. And Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur said that Narottam Das Ṭhākura's songs are as authoritative as the Vedas. So saying
what was the second book, please?
Prem Bhakti Chandrika and Prarthana. You know, we have so many songs in our songbook by him, and you see at the bottom it says from Prarthana. And so we can see that am I speaking too fast?
No, perfect.
Okay, because I'm a little nervous to fit everybody in. Okay, so
it's a traffic jam this week, huh?
Yeah. So we can understand that that's also true about Rāmacandra Kavirāja, and that's why Srila Jiva Gosvāmī himself named him Kavirāja, because of his extraordinary talent in that way. So we offer obeisances, humble obeisances to Sri Rāmacandra Kavirāja in honor of his disappearance day. Sri Rāmacandra Kavirāja Tirubhav Titi Maha Mahotsav Ki Jai. And now, excuse me 1 second. I had to take some honey in my throat. Manuka honey is very good when you have a sore throat. Gulp. Okay, so Srila, yesterday was the appearance day of Srila Gopala Bhatta Gosvāmī, who's one of the 6 famous Goswamis and most intimate disciples of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But let's just take a moment. Why are we doing this? Why are we honoring these Vaishnavas? We read in Chaitanya Charitamrita that Guru, Vaishnava, and Bhagavan, Tinera Smaran, these 3 are to be remembered always, because when we remember them, all of our obstacles in our bhakti in our life are extinguished, and all auspiciousness comes, and all our desires are fulfilled. And because the appearance and disappearance days of these great acharyas are non-different, because both give us an opportunity to remember them. So there's no difference between their appearance day and disappearance day. Also in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 22, it states, Smartavak Satatam Vishnu. That is, all of our rules and regulations, which seem to be innumerable sometime, the do's and the don'ts and the how-tos in Krishna consciousness, are only for the purpose of the positive injunction, always remember Krishna, and all restrictive, prohibitive rules, what to not do, are all for the one prohibitive rule of never forget him even for a moment. So this applies also to the Vaishnavas and Guru, who are non-different from Krishna or Vishnu. So therefore, because they're very, very eager to give their mercy, especially on these titis. Therefore, we remember them. Even if we don't know anything about them, Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Gosvāmī Mahārāja tells us, if we simply remember their name and pray for their mercy, they give their mercy. So Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami was born in a family which which were Sri Vaishnavas, or worshippers, Ramanujacharya Sampradaya, worshippers of Lakshmi Narayan, not by constitutional position, but by tradition. And Gopal Bhatta, it was him and his father, Venkata Bhatt, his uncle, Tirumala Bhatt, and his other uncle, Prabodhananda Saraswati Ṭhākura. They lived in South India. And Gopal Bhatta had heard about Mahaprabhu, not by internet, not by smartphone, not by Instagram, but because people would walk around or go from village to village or country to country on foot. And so traveling, everybody would get the news. And so he got the news of Mahaprabhu's presence in Navadvip, his taking sannyas, and he was mad in separation from him. So he even had dreams about him. Mahaprabhu put him on his lap and drenched him with his tears. And so it's natural that when Mahaprabhu received an invitation from his father, Venkata Bhatt, to spend that particular Chaturmasi period of 4 months during the rainy seasons, when the preachers didn't travel in India because of the rain, lockdown, Mahaprabhu accepted the offer and stayed with them for 4 months. During that time, because of Mahaprabhu's friendly relationship with Venkata Bhatt, and also seeing some pride in Venkata Bhatt's, not about himself, but about his Istadev, Lakshmi Narayan. That Lakshmi Narayan, they never take birth, but Radha and Krishna, Sitaram, they take birth. So they must be expansions of Lakshmi Narayan. So Mahaprabhu proved with all Shastric evidence that Krishna is actually the avatari, and Lord Narayan is avatar, the incarnation or expansion, manifestation of Krishna. And in their joking friendship, Mahaprabhu asked Venkata Bhatt, so if it's true that Krishna just wears gunja berries and he walks around barefoot and he has no throne and he wears the sprigs of mango leaves and flowers in his hair instead of a big golden crown, if that's true for him and his associates, well then how come Lakshmi, who's full of all opulences and the most chaste wife of Lord Narayan, how come she spends so many long years doing severe austerities in Bailvan, which later on became known as Shrivan, the Van of Shri or Lakshmi, which is across the Jamuna River from the main area of Vrindavan. Why couldn't she enter? Why did she do those austerities? So Venkata Bhatt said, well, there's no fault on her part. She wanted to enter the rasa dance, but because Krishna and Narayan are the same, there's no fault on her part of unchastity. So Lord Chaitanya said, yes, there is no fault on her part, but then how come she couldn't get in? So then now he's befuddled, Venkata Bhatt. And Mahaprabhu answered that yes, they're non-difference in tattva, but by ras, Krishna is so superior. And because Lakshmi, although doing so many austerities to enter the rasa dance, to witness the rasa dance, because she could not give up her opulent conception of herself, therefore she could not enter. it's stated in Chaitanya Charitamrita that those who have Aishwarya Gyan, they can never enter into the kunjas of Vrindavan. And so in different yugas, one yuga, Yogamaya Purnamasi came to her, and one yuga Krishna came to her and said, okay, you want to enter into the rasa dance? Are you willing to give up your husband Narayan, marry a gop, and then give him up to have a paramour relationship with Krishna? Of course not. Of course I'm not. I'm the chaste wife of Lord Narayan. Well, that's one disqualification. So are you willing to make cow dung patties and be under the tutelage of the gopis? No. I'm a Brahmane. I'm not a Vaishya. So I'm sorry, you're disqualified. So still today she's doing austerities. So Mahaprabhu in this way, and plus by his personal presence, plus by the fact that even though they're Sri Vaishnavas by tradition, they weren't Sri Vaishnavas by Swarup. So by the influence of a guru in Madhurya Ras, that is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they were able to be transformed to devotees of Radha and Krishna. And as you already know, because I see in the pictures here, you're all very senior advanced devotees. So his uncle, Gopal Bhatta's uncle, is Prabodhananda Saraswati Ṭhākura, who is Tungavidya, one of the 8 principal Sakis and best friends and assistants of Srimati Radhika. And he himself is the eternal maidservant, Gopal Bhatta's eternal maidservant, sometimes known as Guna Manjari, sometimes known as Ananga Manjari. And so he was also there in that pastime when Radharani loses her nose ring. So after Lord Chaitanya left, Gopal Bhatta was beside himself, became mad in separation, just waiting for the opportunity to meet him again. But Mahaprabhu told him that your father, your parents are Vaishnavas, so take care of them until they leave this world. And after that, you can go to Vrindavan, because his uncle, Prabodhananda Saraswati Ṭhākura, had already gone to Vrindavan and was living in Kamyavan, the forest that fulfills all desires. So on the way to Vrindavan, Gopal Bhatta Gosvāmī was passing through the Himalayas, and he was taking bath in the Gomati River there. And he felt the presence behind him of somebody trying to get his attention. So when he turned around, he saw that it was a large Shalagram Shila. And by internally, this Shila was telling him, I want your service. Take me home with you and serve me. So he, with love, he carried that Shila home, and he was worshiping that Shalagram Shila, Shalagram Shila is incarnation of Krishna in the form of a stone, with the full features of Krishna, or Vishnu, or whatever type of Shalagram it is, but not visibly. So then he started feeling a little bad, because he saw the deities of Madhu Pandit and Jiva Goswami and Rupa Goswami, that is Gopinath, Govinda, and Madan Mohan, and they had such beautiful, beautiful threefold bending forms. So he began to lament that I want to also swing my deity, my Radharaman deity, and I also want to dress him and decorate him. So, but I can't do that because he's in the form of a Shalagram Shila. And even knowing of his desire, Krishna sent one rich merchant to give him all kinds of paraphernalia, ornaments, and outfits, and that made him more lament. So then at night, after midnight, in his dream, Shila appeared to him and said, "Come and see how beautiful I am." So he went to the altar and he saw the beautiful threefold bending form of Radharaman. And he was so happy. And so he immediately called for the Goswāmīs. Now he's in Vrindavan, of course. He immediately called for the other Goswāmīs who had sent a letter to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu telling him, handwritten letter, telling him of the arrival of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. And then Mahaprabhu wrote back to take care of him just like they would take care of a younger brother, just as they did for Srila Raghunath Das Goswami. So he called for the Goswāmīs to see the deity. They were amazed in complete ecstasy to see that Radharaman had the face of Gopinath, the chest of Govinda, and the lotus feet of Madan Mohan. And Srila Bhakti Vallabha Goswami Maharaj noted that it was because of the ecstatic visit of Rupa and Sanatan in their taking darshan of Radharaman, their ecstasy in seeing him, that the temple became so famous that now you can go any evening and see jam-packed with hundreds and hundreds of people, hardly any room to breathe, and people with their binoculars so that they can see very closely the deity. So Gopal Bhatta Goswami his worshipful deity is Radharaman, who appeared by himself, self-manifesting deity, just as the deities of Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami are also self-manifesting deities. Also the 6 deities that Narottam Das Ṭhākura discovered are also self-manifesting deities. They're very, very beautiful. And let's see. When Gopal Bhatta Goswami was visited by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his home in South India, he was only 8 years old. So he had the very nice services of massaging Mahaprabhu and doing other personal services for him. And Gopal Bhatta also wrote some very important books in our Gaudiya line, which is Sri Hari Bhakti Vilas. It's sometimes said that he didn't write the book, but Srila Sanatana Goswami wrote the book. And Srila Gurudev said that actually they both wrote the book because they were both given instructions in their hearts how to write the book by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. And this Hari Bhakti Vilas tells all about the what to do's and what not to do's and how to do's in bhakti. The Gurudev explained the meaning of each word of Hari Bhakti Vilas. Hari is Krishna, who steals the heart of Srimati Radhika and the gopis. And Vilas means Krishna who enjoys Vilas, or so many beautiful pastimes with Radharani and the gopis. And bhakti is, of course, bhakti to that, to the Vilas, the many pastimes of that Sri Hari. Hari also means he who takes away all inauspicious things, which by our calculation, this one definition is given by our Srila Prabhupada. He who takes away all inauspicious things, which by our conception at first appears auspicious, and we realize later is inauspicious. He also wrote a commentary on Jiva Goswami's Satsandarbhas, and he also wrote a commentary on Srila Bilvamangal Thakur's Srila Bilvamangal Thakur's Krishna Karanamrita, beautiful prayers to Krishna by Bilvamangal Thakur. And he also wrote his own well, the name is skipping me. Thanks. One sec. Excuse me. Gulp. Which contains all the rules and regulations. What is the name of that book? The last two words is Sardipika. Oh, just totally skipped me.
It's a Satkriya Sardipika.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Satkriya Sardipika, which tells all the how-tos and all the who is. What are the qualifications of guru? What are the qualifications of disciple? How to take sannyas, how to take diksha, who's qualified for diksha, how to take mantra initiation, harinam initiation, how to do a marriage. These are all sanskars or reformatory processes for purification. So Srila Gurudev said we are so much indebted to Srila Gopala Bhatta Goswami. In the Sad Goswami Astikam, we hear about Gopala Bhatta Goswami and his associates, that they're always engaged in studying. Oh, one thing that Gurudev mentioned that I forgot was that Gopala Bhatta Goswami, for the Hari Bhakti Vilas, because he was already great scholar, he knew all the Vedas from being taught by Prabodhananda Saraswati Ṭhākura and his father before they became Gaudiya Vaishnavas. So he collected all this Shastric information for the, I forgot the name, Hari Bhakti Vilas. But then he showed it to Sanatana Goswami, and Sanatana Goswami told him that this is in our line, this is not in our line, this is in our line. And that we hear from Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. What is Amnai? What is the 10 truths that are taught by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? What is the Praman, the body of evidence? And what is the Prameya? What is it that is evidenced by the scriptures? So Amnai is those Vedic scriptures which are accepted by the Gaudiya Guru Parampara. So Srila Sanatana Goswami assisted him in that way with that. So regarding the Sad Goswami Astikam, the Goswamis are always engaged in studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. They are loved by everyone because they're non-envious and because they love everyone. And they save all the conditioned souls from the devouring mouth of liberation by pouring down upon them the nectar glories of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They gave up their very aristocratic positions and took the dress of loincloths, living under a different tree every night. Of course, they were desire trees, and living by begging. But because they were living under a different desire tree every night in Vrindavan, all of their desires were fulfilled, and they were ever bathing in the waves, entering and coming up in the waves of the gopis' love for Krishna. In their feelings of separation, they were always calling out, "Oh Radha, oh Krishna, oh Lalita, Vishaka, where are you all? Are you somewhere under the Bangsiba tree? Are you up on Govardhan? Are you by the banks of the Jamuna? Where are you all now?" And in these moods, they executed their ecstasies. You look like you want to say something, Yasoda Prabhu? No?
No, I'm just looking at you.
Okay. Okay. So Srila Gopal Bhatta Gosvāmī ki jai. Tadaya Abhibhav Titi Maha Mahotsav ki jai. Then Srila Jayadeva Goswami, he is tomorrow. So we're right in the middle of magic. So Jayadeva Goswami, as you know, is the author of that most amazing book of meeting and separation of Shri Radha and Krishna, called Gita Govinda. And Srila Gurudev gave many lectures about the importance of Gita Govinda, as well as some of the songs in Gita Govinda. Radharani's song of separation, saying, this is our goal of life, to serve Srimati Radhika in her separation. And he told how the Gita Govinda manifested, how it became completed, because Jayadeva Goswami was receiving, actually this book was written not by Jayadeva Goswami, but it was written by Krishna. Who else could reveal the love of Radha and Krishna than Krishna himself? So he was receiving the book in his trance, and everything was going fine until he came to the verse where Krishna is, can you get the Sevāvigraha poster? It was on the table last night. Thanks. Where Krishna committed an offense to Radharani, and now she didn't want to have anything to do with him anymore. So he came to her. Well, he came to her. How did he come to her? Very late the next morning instead of the previous night. And then accidentally, he said, "Oh, Chandra." And then he realized he was just about to say Chandravali, and he stopped himself short and changed Chandravali to Chandranani. Oh, Chandra Anani means her face is as beautiful as so many moons. So then she was already upset, but now that was the end. The picture was on the table last night, so look. Okay, so actually Gurudev said in this painting, you know the painting of Sevāvigraha, there's lakhs, hundreds of thousands of pastimes within there. So there Krishna is begging Radharani, Smaragaralakandanam mama shirishi mandanam dehi parapalavam udaram. Oh Srimati Radharani, I am, what am I doing? I am burning in a great fire of separation from you. Please be merciful to me. And please be merciful to me and place your lotus feet on my head so that this fire will go down. So here it is, although you already know it. And actually, Srila Prabhupada planted the seed of this painting because when I was a teenager of 19 years old, and I started painting for Srila Prabhupada, he noticed that I was spacing out and like that, just coming off of LSD and marijuana and all the things that teenagers did in the 60s. And so he was trying to take the bright side, like Krishna took the bright side with Putana. And so he what happened? I lost my train of thought. Oh my God. What was I saying? Oh, yes. So Prabhupada took the bright side and he said, yes, any creative, intelligent person has to think more than they actually do. Like a judge has to go off into his chambers and think about what should the verdict be. And then he comes back and does the verdict. He said, so similarly, then he told the story of Jayadeva Goswami. So similarly, when this verse was coming into his heart, he dropped his pen because his hand was trembling and his heart was trembling. So he couldn't write that because he was thinking, how can I write that Krishna is bowing down at the feet of Srimati Radhika? Although she's an exalted devotee, she is a devotee and he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he told his wife Padmavati, I have to think about this. I don't know what to do. I have to take bath in the river and I will think about it. So the river was some distance away. So he left, but then sometime soon, Krishna came in his form and asked his wife for his pen and the book. And then he himself completed the verse, Dehi Parapalavam Udaram. Please be merciful to me and place your lotus feet on my head. And then Krishna left. And then the real Jayadeva Goswami came. And this time his hair was wet because now this was the real Jayadeva Goswami. And he had just really come back from the river taking bath. So she said, how did you get back so soon? He said, I didn't get back so soon. I left a long time ago. She said, yes, but then you came back and wrote something in your book. Wrote something in my book? Let me see that. And then he saw in golden letters that the completion of the verse was there. And so he began weeping and he told his wife, oh, Padmavati Devi, you're so fortunate that Krishna himself came to you in my form. So both of them fainted in ecstasy. So in this way, it's not an ordinary book that he wrote, just like Srila Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura, he wrote Navadvip Parikrama, but in trance, seeing the Navadvip Parikrama, seeing Nityananda take Prabhu, take Jiva Goswami on Parikrama. And just like Srila Bhaktivinoda Ṭhākura, in his trance, he wrote Jaiva Dharma. Amazing personalities that were so fortunate to have come in connection with by our Diksha and Shiksha Gurus. So first he lived in Koladweep, the same island where Gurudev has his temple, Shri Keshavji Gaudiya Math, in the place called Champahatta, where there's many, many beautiful yellow champak flowers. And the king, King Balasain, was a great admirer of him. And he invited Jayadeva Goswami to live in the palace. But Jayadeva said, I have nothing to do with the king. If you bother me like this anymore, then I'm leaving your country. I'm going elsewhere. We'll go to Purī, we'll go out. And so the king begged him that I'll come to you just when you call me then. And I'll come not in a kingly robe, but I'll come in a very poor way so that no one will be able to recognize me. So then, after some time, Jayadeva and his wife did move to Jagannath Puri. And it's so beautiful, his book, that Jagannath himself is so eager to hear it. Once in a garden, a Devadasi, that is the dancing girls of the Jagannath Puri temple, was singing the verses of Gita Govinda. And Jagannath himself was so enchanted by hearing those verses that he himself in his deity form actually came out of the temple and ran to where that singing was. And as he ran past thorny bushes. And so his clothes and his body got scratched by the thorns. And then after he heard the verses, he went back to his temple. But then the Pujari opened the door and he was amazed to see Jagannath's condition. And the Pujaris became filled with concern. But the next night, Jagannath appeared to the Pujari and told him what had happened. And so then, from then on, there's an order that no one can sing Gita Govinda outside the temple. They have to chant it inside the temple so that Jagannath doesn't have to go anywhere. And also, Jayadeva Goswami received darshan of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as well. And one of our very important songs that we have from Jayadeva Goswami is his Dasavatar Stotram, which we sing on the appearance days of all the avatars. Nrsimha, Varaha, all the avatars, we sing that. Baladev, Krishna, and of course there's that most famous one, Tava Kara Kamala Bare Nakamadutta Shringam Dalita Ranyakashipu Tanubringam Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha. So this comes from Jayadeva Goswami. Amazing, amazing personality. So we offer our obeisances to Sri Jayadeva Goswami. So many other amazing pastimes. His wife was so chaste. By the way, if you can get the book, I think it's called Sri Chaitanya and His Associates by Srila Bhakti Vallabha Tirtha Goswami Maharaj. It's a big book of all the associates of Mahaprabhu, including Jayadeva Goswami, where there are many, many more pastimes of him. And so whenever, right now they're out of print, but if you let me know, I can or you can just write into them and order it. And then whenever it's reprinted, they can send it to you, although you may be able to get it online. So many beautiful pastimes there. Like there was one, some dacoits, because he used to do bhiksha. And so they thought that he had some wealth on him. So they, these dacoits chopped off his hands and his feet, and they threw him in a well for dead. But then he was found, and then he was brought to the palace of the king, and they took care of him very good. And then these dacoits came to the palace of the king, and Jayadeva Goswami told the king to give them anything that they want and give them a nice donation before they go, because they were faking that they were sadhus. So then after they left, they were imagining that Jayadeva Goswami told on them. So they started defending themselves to their honorable escorts who were just taking them because the king ordered them to give them an honorable escort. So then they started saying that actually this Jayadeva is a terrible person, and that's why we had to do what we did to him. So that's it. They killed themselves. And then the ground broke open and they both fell in the ground, into the ground, and they all died. And so nobody wants to mess with the pure devotees. And guess what happened? his feet and hands grew back. Isn't that the most amazing thing? Nobody can hurt the pure devotees because they're transcendental, just like Krishna. And they only appear here, just like Krishna appears. There's no birth, old age, disease, death. They may do some pastimes of such things as taking birth, as dying. But our Param Gurudev, Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj, compared that to an actor on stage who puts on different costumes, and maybe in one of the costumes he gets shot and dies on the stage. So many things happen to him, but really he's always all right. So the pure devotees are like that. And his wife Padmavati, she's as good as him, on the same level and so chaste. There was one incident, I don't remember all the details, you can read about it in the book, and we'll discuss more details about it. Tomorrow night we're having a program here at Shashikala's house, Didi's house in Miami. We'll be discussing more elaborately that his wife was so chaste that I think it was the queen was didn't believe that somebody could be so chaste as her. So she tested her, and but don't copy me on the queen. It was some prominent lady. And she told her that her husband died, and immediately Padmavati died. Isn't that amazing? Right on the spot. So then somehow or other, he had to convince her that he was there, and she came back to life. So Sri Jayadeva Goswami ki Jai. Now it's also the disappearance day of Locana Ṭhākura. We'll be discussing him in great detail tomorrow, but I just want to mention a little bit of his songs. He's the one who writes the heavy songs. And our Srila Prabhupada told us how powerful and important his bhajans are. In the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Chaitanya Mangal, I'm sorry. And Chaitanya Mangal, which is his book about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, he hardly wrote anything about Nityananda Prabhu, and he was feeling very bad. So to make up for that in his heart, he wrote so many songs about Nityananda, kirtans and bhajans. And not only about Nityananda Prabhu, but about Advaita Acharya, right? Yeah, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he always has a heavy ending to his song. So I'm going to read a couple of those endings. And tomorrow, of course, at the program, we'll be singing all of these songs during the bhajan time. So this is all about the glories of Nityananda Prabhu, where he says the water that bathes Nitai's feet is the same Ganga that Lord Shiva bears upon his head. One who does not worship Nitai will suffer and die. Locana Ṭhākura declares, I shall scorch the face of one who has no regard for my Nimai. And then the next one, Akroda Paramananda, Nityananda Rai. He ends by saying, Locana Ṭhākura says, that sinful person who has not experienced an awakening of attachment, for such an avatar, he's so amazing, simply comes and goes in the endless cycle of birth and death. Actually, why would he write such cruel things, especially in Chaitanya Bhagavat? He wrote, anyone who doesn't have any devotion for my Nityananda Prabhu, I kick on his head. So why? What does that mean? why did Nityananda Prabhu kick the head of, who is that? Shivananda Singh, when he was a little bit late in getting together all the accommodations for all the Vaishnavas, because he was in charge of that. Why? Because the touch of his lotus foot gives one eternal liberation and bliss and knowledge, seeming like a punishment. So Sri Locana Thakur's curses, according to Srila Bhaktivedanta Bharati Gosvāmī Mahārāja, is all mercy, that I'm going to have to purify such people. So then in and of course he also ends some of his songs very humbly, condemning himself in Ki Jabi Ke Jabi Ba Baba Sindhu Pada. He says, all jivas are crossing over the favorable winds of prema. Only Lochandas, due to his fault, is left behind. Shri Lochandas Ṭhākura Ki Jai. And last but not least, I want to read a little bit, and we'll be discussing more his glories, Srila Bhakti Vaibhava Purī Gosvāmī Mahārāja, whose disappearance day is tomorrow. I'm already running overtime. Okay, today is just one story that Srila Maharaj tells. He says, Srila Bhakti Vaibhava Purī Gosvāmī Mahārāja used to say in the Kovura Mutt, and each time he would pass Kovura by train, we would pass, he would always meet us at the station with prasad, or have his disciple meet us with prasad. And this place, Kovura, is a very holy place where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu first met Rāmacandra. And his disciple is the very much loved Bhakti Kamal Govinda Maharaj, who many of Srila Gurudev's disciples met and used to hear his classes in Vrindavan. So when Bhakti Kamal Govinda Maharaj was still a child, he would accompany his Gurudev to meet any Vaishnava at the station with prasadam. So I know that I'm way over time. So I'll end here and we'll discuss more of his divine glories tomorrow evening. And thank you very much. Panchakopachuyubhyascha kapisanabhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Syamarani, that was astounding. I was only expecting you to do one or two of the acharyas. To do 6 in less than an hour and a quarter is unbelievable. Thank you so much. We have a couple of questions. Mitra Didi had a question for you, if she's there. Would you like to ask Syamarani your question? Mitra Haribol? No, she's not coming forward. I had a question for you, Syamarani, where maybe she's away from her screen. You flickered past this point. I just wanted you to go into it a bit more. You said something about Gopal Bhatta and Guna Mandri and Ananga Mandri. Can you just say a little bit more about that?
Yes, Srila Gurudev states that he's Guna Mandri, and Srila Bhakti Balatirtha Gosvāmī Maharaj said that in Gaura Ganadesha Deepika, he's described as Ananga Mandri, and he says, but he's also understood to be Guna Mandri. So sometimes the same Manjari may have more than one name. Like, for example, we know that Raghunath Das Goswami is Rati Manjari and also known as Tulsi Manjari.
Yeah.
And sometimes more than one Manjari has the same name.
So the implication is that Ananga Mandri and Guna Mandri are the same Mandri.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Thank you. That's very, very interesting.
But then wait, but then there's Ananga Manjari who is Radharani's younger sister, who is not the same person, but she is Baladev, manifested as a gopi.
And also Nityananda Prabhu.
Yes, also Nityananda Prabhu.
Yeah. Wow.
Isn't it astonishing how I waste so much time thinking about junky things of this world when I could be absorbed in these amazing personalities' pastimes and become...
Shaman, you got no idea. If you're wasting time, I can't imagine what I'm doing. So it is astonishing. Mitra Didi's come back. Please, Mitra, ask your question. You need to come off mute, my dear. Where is she? Oh, she's disappeared. What's going on? Oh, she says she's here. Let's see if I can find her question.
I'm seeing that she's disconnected.
Oh, she's reconnecting. Okay, Mitra?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly. Carry on, please.
Sorry, I'm having some Wi-Fi connection issues.
No problem. Where are you calling from, Mitra?
I'm calling from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Sorry, I was having some connection issues, and during the stories that you were telling us, Syamarani Didi, I had come in and heard you speaking about when things are being taken away from us, it might appear as auspicious, but eventually we come to find that there is actually inauspicious. Can you explain that a little bit more? I kind of came into the middle of you saying this, so I didn't know what it was in regards to.
Okay, so Srila Gopala Bhatta Gosvāmī is the author of Hari Bhakti Vilas. On one hand...
Syamarani, we can't hear you so well now.
Oh my goodness. Can you hear me now?
A little bit.
It's gone a bit faint.
Uh-oh. Let me see if I put on my... let me first of all turn off my heater, which is roaring.
No problem. Take your time.
Okay. Oh, you heard me. But it's just faint. Let me see if it's a... You can turn off the heater. Let me see if it's a volume problem on my phone.
It sounds, you're much more clear now.
Yeah, it's better now, Syamarani. Carry on.
Okay, super. So, in defining, Srila Gurudev was defining each word of Gopala Bhatta Goswami's book, Hari Bhakti Vilas. So he explained it as Hari means he who steals the heart of Srimati Radhika and the gopis. So Srila Prabhupada also gave another definition of Hari, because Hari means to take away. So one who takes away all of our inauspicious things, which by our calculation appears auspicious. And then later on, we realize they're inauspicious. They were inauspicious, and Krishna did a good thing to give his mercy.
I see. Thank you very much.
Got it. Thank you. Okay, I think we come to a close. Any more questions before we close up? I have a couple of announcements, but just in case any last minute questions. Okay, a couple of quick announcements. We're announcing a 55-hour non-stop live Zoomathon glorification of Srila Gurudev, which is going to involve the whole world from Bolivia to China and from Canada to New Zealand. Every country we could include, we've included. We've got 23 speakers from China, for example. We got 10 speakers from Russia. It's going to be magnificent. And it runs from the 10th of February through to the 12th. So it's covering all the TTs across the world. I will publish it in our group, so you'll have all the connections. And we warmly welcome you all to that Zoomathon. Spread the news. There'll be 5 different MCs, because obviously one MC can't do 55 hours. It's going to be fairly monumental, but it really brings together our global family. Gurudev had no interest in the difference between nationalities, ethnicities, and religions. He has one family, and we want to bring together one family and use Zoom to be able to facilitate that. So that's the first announcement. And the second announcement, which I'll also publish in the group, so no need to take any notes, I'll publish it later, is that we have a 2021 calendar in PDF form designed by Kalimba in Northwest America. And it's really beautiful because Anupam in Mexico is doing the TT. So wherever you are in the world, you'll send the details to her. She'll get the PDF wherever you live, so that the festival, so you can honor all the festivals and all the Acharya disappearance and appearance days on the correct TTs based on where you live. And then it will be sent to you in PDF form for you to print as you like. So those are two exciting announcements for Gurudev's centennial year.
Can I say something in support of the 55-hour Zoomathon? Yesterday, I just happened to be in a house, Shashikala Didi's house, where they were watching the Gurudev's memories of Krishna Kamini Didi. Now, nobody in the world knows Krishna Kamini. She lives in New Jersey with her husband, Vinay Prabhu. And the only people who know them are family members and her congregation in New Jersey. And her talk, when I heard her talk, it sounded exactly like one of these, big wig preachers that you'll pay all their car fare to come to your country and everybody will come and listen to for a week. Because it was so astonishing, full of like pristine Siddhanta, beautiful, loving pastimes that revealed actually the perfect glory and contribution of Srila Gurudev. So I can imagine one thing that this Zoomathon does is, as a former or member of the Bhakti Trust, when it was existed during Gurudev's time, he ordered the members of the Bhakti Trust, of which Jashodanandan Prabhu was a prominent member. He ordered the Bhakti Trust to bring and maintain unity in his Sangha. So now this work that Jashodanandan Prabhu and company is doing with all of these Zoomathons and remembering Gurudev and all these different subjects and the pastimes, especially hearing from quote unquote ordinary devotees. So we actually, by doing that, we get so much honor, love, and reverence for all these people who we don't even know exist. And it just brings us into so much appreciation that we're part of this amazing Sangha. And we just get to love everybody by hearing their stories and their presentation of Gurudev's contribution.
That's really beautiful, Syamarani. It reminds me, in my heart, when I was communing with Gurudev on this, the Lila that came to me was the Lila of Lord Ram and the squirrel. Because we're all the squirrels. That's why I thought of the Chinese, because we don't hear from the Chinese. And but I know, because I once went to I remember being behind the temple in Navadvip, and I remember all the Chinese assembling at the front near where Premananda was having his gatherings. I can't understand any Chinese, but I can understand people's hearts and how they were singing, interact. You couldn't help your heart just completely melt. These people literally are worried about getting knocks on the door, and yet they're worshipping Gurudev and Parampara and Radha and Krishna. They're taking unbelievable risks for their spiritual conviction. And so, like, we get worried if a bit of our data gets stolen. They're actually literally can get carted off in the night. These people are taking enormous risks. So I just have so much respect for people who take these kind of, a bit like the Soviets in the 70s under Prabhupada supervision. So anyway, very exciting. Thank you for your support, Syamarani. Hare Krishna. Dandavat pranams.
Dandavat pranam.
Please take yourself off mute and have a nice chat if you like.
Hare Krishna, Radhe Radhe.
Hare Krishna, Purva. Hare